Good morning. I tried not. Good morning, everybody. Good morning and welcome to the Ventura Center for Spiritual Living. I'm Reverend Bonnie Rose. It's great to see you here today. Let's stand up. We'll sing together our celebration song. It's not Delta Dawn. It is It's So Good to Be Together. Here we go. And we allow ourselves to breathe deeply. And as we do, we still our bodies, we still our minds, we still our hearts, allowing ourselves to be here, fully present, as we listen to our sacred reading.
The Poisoned Tree by Jack Kornfield. On first discovering a poisoned tree, some people see only its danger. Their immediate reaction is, let's cut this down before someone gets hurt. This resembles our initial response to the difficulties that arise in our lives. When we encounter aggression, depression, or sorrow in ourselves and others. Our initial response is to avoid them, saying these poisons afflict us, let us uproot them, let us be rid of them, let us cut them down. Other people who have journeyed further along the spiritual path discover this poison tree and do not meet it with aversion. They have realized that to open to life requires a deep and heartfelt compassion for all that is around us. Knowing the poison tree is somehow a part of us, they say, let us not cut it down. Instead, let's have compassion for the tree. So out of kindness, they build a fence around the tree so that others may not be poisoned and the tree may also have its life. This second approach shows a profound shift of relationship from judgment and fear to compassion. A third type of person who has traveled yet deeper in the spiritual life sees this same tree. This person who has gained much vision looks and says, "Oh, a poisoned tree. Perfect, just what I was looking for." This individual picks the poisoned fruit, investigates its properties, mixes with other ingredients, and uses the poison as a great medicine to heal the sick and transform the ills of the world. Through respect and understanding, this person sees in a way opposite to most people and finds value in the most difficult circumstances. In every aspect of life, the chance to turn the straw we find into gold is there in our hearts. All that is asked is our respectful attention, our willingness to learn from difficulty. Instead of fighting, when we see with eyes of wisdom, difficulties can become our good fortune. When our body is sick, instead of fighting the disease, we can listen to the information it has to tell us and use it to heal. When our children whine or complain, instead of shutting them out, we can listen to what is their deeper need. When we have some difficulty with an aspect of our lover or partner, we might inquire how we treat that part in ourselves. Difficulties or weaknesses often lead us to the very thing we need to learn. And so it is.
And so it is. And so in the spirit of Jack Kornfield's reading, which is about wholeness, about the inclusion of everything, the meaning of the word perfect, which is to include all. Let us recognize our wholeness, our innate wholeness, no matter what is going on in our lives, no matter who we think we are. Beyond and within all of it, there is this deep and abiding sense of wholeness. And so we remember that together as we sing, I am remembering who I am. We remember our own wholeness, and we remember the wholeness of all beings everywhere. I am remembering who I am. Remembering in this beautiful silence. Let us remember again as we breathe in deeply. And exhale, opening our eyes in love and service to what is as it is. And so it is.
It's okay. Oh, yeah. Ready. Let us, when swimming in the stream, become the water. Let us, when moving with the tune, become the song. Let us, when rocking the wounded, become the suffering. Let us live deep enough till there is only one direction. Let us live slow enough till there is only the beginning of time, and loud enough in our hearts till there is no need to speak. Let us live for the grace beneath all we want, and let us see it in everyone and everything, till we admit to the mystery that when I look deep enough into you, I will find me. And when you dare to hear my fear in the recess of your heart, you recognize it as a secret that you thought no one else knew. Oh, let us embrace that unexpected moment of unity as the atom of God. Let us have the courage to hold each other when we break and worship what unfolds. Oh, nameless spirit, who is not done with us, let us love without a net, beyond the fear of death, until the speck of peace that we guard so becomes, it becomes the world.
Thank you. It's beautiful. Thanks. We're doing a part of the series of interviews with reconciling angels. Some of you know that over the past year or so, I've started this series where I speak to people that are doing the work of reconciliation in the world. Another word for reconciliation is peacemaking or bringing together. And I have two wonderful people that I'm interviewing today, Chris and Meenal Kelkar. I met them several years ago. They went away for a little while, and now they're back here at the center. And I wrote down some things so I don't forget to say what I want to say, and so I don't ramble. They are what I would call relationship experts. They are very tuned into their own relationship with each other, but also the relationships that they have with other people. And they teach others to have this tuned-inness with relationships. I had the privilege of attending one of their classes in Ojai, and it was just lovely. It was just amazing. And in fact, they are going to be teaching a class here, as it said in the announcements, starting in a little over a week. They're healers and they're teachers. Chris recently published a book that he may or may not talk about. I think that's all I'll say. I'll give them the time and the space to speak. So let's give a lot of VCSL love to our friends Chris and Meenal as they come on the stage. Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to angle this way a little bit so you two can face out more. There you go. So, hi.
You sure you did not plan that? Because the words to that song were like so aligned with what we teach.
Yeah, I was like, ooh, ooh. I mean, it was in my mind. I was nudging Meenal. Yeah, so now that you bring up what you teach, can you give us a little synopsis of what you do?
Well, so I think what I'd like to do is I'd like to answer it with like a personal example, and then also kind of go into like what's important about what we do rather than the how in which we do it.
Sure.
And so it occurred to us, like just over the past few days in preparing for this, it's like we've really had this opportunity to like really go back and see where some of these seeds were planted for us to get to a place where some of the things that we do in our relationship and when in relating to other people is now intuitive. It's just ingrained in us. And so we don't even realize that we're doing the thing that's actually remarkable because it's just what we do. And so it occurred to me that part of one of the really important seeds was that a couple years after we were married, I was assaulted. And in the process, it was on an airplane, and it was the gentleman that was next to me, and I woke up and basically he had his hand on my leg. But I couldn't escape. I had this story that went through my head that if I say anything, it's just gonna make it worse. Like, no one's gonna believe me. And so what I chose to do in the moment was to make myself as small as possible in that seat, and didn't realize it until many, many years later, but I left my body. And I pulled my sexual energy in so deep inside of me that I didn't have access to it. And so it was in the conversation about, are we even gonna have kids? Let's deal with the horse before the cart, that we went into therapy and everything, and it took us to this place of many years of Western tried and proven remedies that weren't working, and then really going into the Eastern route and looking at our body, looking at our mind, looking at our thoughts. And so what occurred to me was, there was a line in the song about like slowing things down so slowly. And that's actually what we needed to do. What we didn't know at the time, what we finally realized, was that my body was frozen. And when someone has been in a trauma where you've left your body and you go into that freeze state, it's almost like this animal that is so scared, and it's like that the only way that you can approach that animal is to sit there and to be this loving presence and to wait until that animal kind of comes towards you and wakes up and like wants the attention. You can't go in too fast because then they'll snarl at you or they'll retreat and they'll hide. And it never occurred to me for us to look at my body in that way. And so that's what we started doing, was we started paying attention, curious attention, mine as well as Chris's. Like if I started saying, oh no, it's not going to work again, it's not going to help, it's like we've done this before, why should I think anything's going to be any different? Then it was the quality of my thoughts that was affecting my body. It's like, why would my body come out if that's what I'm thinking? Why would, if he comes at me too fast, I would shrink, like that energy would shrink away in me. And so it was about both of us learning to put curious attention and to say, welcome, invite me out, I'm here, I'm waiting for you. Like, be delighted, be surprised. And then also acknowledging the truth of what is, because I wanted to be present. I wanted to be here. Both of us wanted that desperately. And to start naming the truth of, oh, like I can feel myself shrinking right now. It's been too much, like, and just acknowledging what is. And so those were the seeds of what we've started to do in all areas of our life. And I'll let Chris talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, thank you. So we started taking what we learned and we started applying it to all of our interactions. And what was amazing was that like repeated patterns of behavior that we would have that just had us stuck in outcomes that we just didn't like would just melt away. We would often see the pattern, the opportunity to jump into the pattern, and we could choose differently. There was more truth, there was more trust, there was more honesty, there was more joy, there was more play in our relationship. It just blossomed. It was almost like flowers popping out of seeds. It's like a magical quality. The other thing that was amazing was that it opened a doorway for us to really explore how interconnected we really are. And I'll go more into that in a few minutes, but the whole thing around interconnectedness is this magical exploration. And so we started playing with this in all aspects of our relationship. And then probably about 4 years ago, we started actually applying it very, very proactively, consciously, to all of our other relationships. Not that we weren't doing it before, because that's kind of how it works, but we started applying it to all of our relationships. And we started really connecting with people and seeing who they are and forming these deep friendships. Loving people without having to know what they do for a living or how many kids they have or any of the details that we get attached to. It was just a magical thing. So actually, let me just say that this sounds kind of abstract, so it might be good if we just talk about a personal example.
Great.
Yeah.
I was about to say that. Can you be more specific? Thank you.
I'm channeling.
Good, channeling it, good.
So I got this thing with technology. Like, I was sitting there in our prayer class the other day, and I'm like, you know, what is it that I really believe about technology? Because I'm actually like very good at it, and yet it's like we're not friends. We wrestle a lot, and this has been like an ongoing, you know, I've got a whole history around this. But it used to be like with my old business, it's like I used to work from home, and there were times when Chris would come home, and I was just like, I was ready to just like shoot the computer, you know, because it was just not working, and it worked yesterday, but it's not working today, and I don't know what I'm doing wrong, but I know I need to get this done. And, you know, it's like I was in this place of just frustration and overwhelm. Not knowing what to do. And poor Chris, it's like he'd walk in the house and like this is what he was encountering.
So the ironic part is I used to work in high technology. So of course I knew how to fix this. If I didn't, I had no business doing what I was doing. And so I would walk in and I would just feel this huge need to save her. She just needed to be rescued. Damsel in distress, I'm going to jump in and just fix everything. And what I found was that that actually didn't do anything but recreate it again. It fixed the thing, but it didn't actually lead to more connection. And in fact, after doing this a few times, I noticed that I was starting to have resentful thoughts. Why does she always do this to me? Oh my God, I walk in, I'm tired. Anyway, so you kind of know what I'm saying. It's less connection, not more connection. So.
Yeah, so it's like over time. So this pattern still exists. In fact, it came up again this week, and which is why I was kind of laughing. It's like relationship experts. It's like I don't consider myself an expert. It's like all of this has been exploration, and all of it has been discovery, and that's the beauty of it. Is like I don't think there's ever really a final destination. It's always a work in progress, and so this happens to be a particular area where we keep having this. Well, as I say, I'm very generous in giving him plenty of opportunities to practice, you know, so.
So let me actually talk a little bit kind of concretely about how we applied some of the things that we learned. So first of all, one of the things that we did is we slowed things down. Slowing things down actually allows us to feel and notice what we're reacting to. And so I could actually feel the discomfort of hearing how frustrated Mina was. She was telling me about all the pain she was experiencing. I love this woman. I don't want her to experience pain. So I could feel that pull of like, oh, I don't like this. And so of course, if I don't like it, I want to do something about it. So that's one thing that was going on. The other thing that I got good at is actually putting curious attention and combining that with speaking the truth. So I would say, oh, I notice that I feel like rescuing you right now. What's going on in the space between us that has me doing that? And so first it was a question that I had for myself, and then I would actually speak it. And it might sound something like, I notice I want to rescue you. Are you feeling helpless or overwhelmed? And wow, magically, that actually led to more connection because I was actually seeing her.
Yeah, and poor guy, it's like at times it's like, yes, isn't it obvious that I'm feeling overwhelmed? But it's like it started to develop the ear of saying, oh, he's loving me in this instant. It may not look exactly what I want it to look like, which is like, just fix the darn thing. But the reality is like, it's like until I change my relationship with the technology, it's like, yeah, he can keep jumping in and rescuing me, but it's just going to continue in some form or the other. And so at some point, it's like, I want my own independence. I want my own answer. And so in that moment, when he makes that offer, like, is that really what you want to do? Is there, how can I support you? Can I actually like just soften and hear it as he loves me, he wants to help me, but he also does believe that I've got the answer within me. And today it might look like one thing, tomorrow it might look like something else, because guess what, we change.
So the one other point I wanted to make was that the doorway to interconnection. Okay, so I walk in, and yeah, part of it is I'm hearing her complaining and telling me and being frustrated. But there's also a component where I'm actually sensing her frustration. She could have said nothing, and I would have known she was frustrated. And I could feel that. And I think many of you out there, probably all of you, have had that experience of actually sensing someone else. So that's one form of interconnection. The other form of interconnection is this hook that we play with each other with. It's like she's feeling helpless, so I want to rescue. Or maybe I want to rescue, so she's feeling helpless. It goes both ways. And so it's really interesting as to how we dance energetically and how we play with each other. And it's not something we see, and it's not something we hear. It's not something that the world out there actually gives credibility to. because what we give credibility to is prove it. If I can see it, I'll believe it. But there's actually this whole thing that goes on.
So I want to bring this around to the third, because that was something that we put in our title, and we used it very intentionally because we knew that the congregation's familiar with the third force. And the third, and I think many of you are also might be familiar with counsel, which is something that was introduced here back in the fall. And so we learned a form of counsel where you actually sit with someone that you have a relationship with, and you create the altar. And the idea is, it's 4 very basic agreements: is to speak from the heart, listen from the heart, speak leanly, and speak spontaneously. So in other words, I'm actually listening to what the other person's saying. I'm holding space, and I'm bringing that curious attention to what's actually what is the other person actually saying. And we were doing this practice, and it's done just between 2 people. The difference is there's actually another pillow, there's another seat. So there's 3 seats, a third. And for a long time we were like, we never really paid attention to that other pillow. It was just like, okay, well, we're going to create sacred space, and we're going to hash this out, this problem that we had today. And it's like, why did you do the thing that you did again that I already told you not to do again? You know, and so it's like we basically were using the space to recreate and rehash the stuff that was already going on outside, until we had this realization: what is that pillow for? What does that actually represent? And it represents a third perspective. And it's been through listening to the voice of, like, when I actually slow things down, when I actually open my heart, when I actually listen to what that other perspective might have to offer, that magic starts to appear. And so all of a sudden, what we the very first thing we realized was that, oh, that perspective, like if Bonnie were to see us arguing, she would have a completely different perspective than what I thought he did to me, and vice versa. She would probably have a perspective that included both of us. It's like, yeah, well, you know, you did that thing and he did that thing, or whatever. Or she could hold a possibility of a solution that neither of us could see, so that neither of us were wrong. And that's what we started realizing, was like, oh, that voice, it holds us in our wholeness. It holds us in the humanness, as well as the part of us that's divine, that actually has the answers, that actually that has that big heart that's open to the field of possibilities. And that voice is never shaming. It's always saying, yeah, you can, I do trust you. It's like, you have it in you. Just listen more deeply.
May I jump in for 1 sec? Mm-hmm. So the third is what we talk about in this center as wholeness. It's the place beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing. It's Rumi's field. It's not necessarily a person. It's not me, but it's or anybody else. It's a cushion that represents this field of all possibilities. I'm looking at the time, and we're doing great, but I would love it if you could, now, because one of my questions for you is okay, you two are conscious, and you've made an effort, and you're doing this together. I'm suspecting that there may be 1 or 2 people out there that have relationships with others that maybe are not quite so conscious. So now you guys are all incredibly conscious and incredibly wise, but there may be a few people in your lives that wouldn't really cooperate with this practice. So can you speak a little bit about it with people that are not in this particular flow?
Yeah, and I wouldn't, so I'll give you an example with my father. And I wouldn't say that he's not conscious. He is. He's very, very loving, very much on the path of service. And but I have a long history with him of the experience I would have was of not being heard. That I would actually say something to him as a child, or when I was growing up, as a teenager or whatever, and it was like almost like being dismissed a little bit. I'm not saying that he was doing that. That was the experience that I had on my end. And so this went on for years and years and years, and I still even remember very vividly that when my mother was diagnosed with breast cancer, her youngest sister was staying with them, And there was a lot of stress in the house because of their interaction, and she had a lot of resentment to them and everything. And I remember just knowing deep in my bones that my mother needs to come home after her treatment and have a quiet, restful, peaceful, healing space in the house. And so some boundaries needed to be communicated to my aunt. But I remember telling Chris this, was that I will say it to my father, I'll deliver the message to my father. If he doesn't hear me, I'm going to turn to you and you say the same exact thing. Because in this moment, what's most important is that he actually receives the message. Doesn't matter who it comes from. And sure enough, that's what happened. So years later, and it's like, Chris reminded me of this. I didn't even remember the exact details of the conversation, but I remember sitting down with him. It's like he was reluctant to retire. They had their own business. He was doing taxes and things, and it was like every April the same story about like how busy he was, and he was like working until like the middle of the night, and he's already in his late 60s and stuff. And I'm like, I finally went and I had a conversation with him, and I was like, what I want the most for you is your well-being. When I hear you say this over and over again, it's like, I really wonder, like, are you getting joy out of it? You've already said that you have the money, like you could retire and everything, but it's like, I just want what's best for you. Mm-hmm. And I came with it from that place of love, of just, I need to share this with you. Like, I get worried when I hear how late you work and how hard you're working and everything, and that you keep taking on new clients. And so I came home and I told Chris, it's like, I don't know if he heard me or not, but I did what I needed to do in the relationship, and I needed to speak up. I couldn't keep silent anymore. Mm-hmm. And what surprised me is that over time, he actually started coming to me and saying, it's like, you remember when you told me that all I needed to do when someone comes to me and asks, like, can I do their taxes? All you need to do is say no, just say no. I said no. And I'm like, what? Like, and Chris is like, did you hear him? He just said, you know. But it had to come from that pure place. It had to come from my communication with him. It really had to come from that place of no expectation that what I have to say will change it. But can I actually just, I don't even know how to say it, like, can I do the thing that I need to do to be right in the relationship? And can I do it with an open heart? Can I do it with an open mind? Mm-hmm. And it's crazy, it blows my mind. It's like, as I was saying before, it's almost like that now has become my reality, that my father actually hears me, that I don't even remember the details of that conversation that I had with him. So what I'm giving this example because things can change. And all it takes is for one person to make the change in the relationship for the change to happen. Doesn't mean that it happens right away, but can I come to this circumstance as if for the first time? Can I come to it holding the possibility that things could be different, rather than coming at it with the attitude of, oh, I know where this is going to go. I've already done this before, so all right, let me try again. Like, completely different.
It's such
approach.
a subtle beauty that you pointed out of recognizing that things can change, but it's not about changing the other person. That you mentioned that you have released expectations, but it's about changing your approach in terms of how you approach the situation. That's a beautiful thing, and subtle, and something that I think most of us probably were not taught, right? Most of us were taught if we want a relationship to change, you have to work really hard to change the other person, right? Right, Hugh? Yeah, you know? Yeah.
Well, and believe me, we've tried that also.
Yeah, you tried that too, yeah.
That works so well.
Yeah, so well, I know.
Yeah, remember that computer that I was beating my head? Yeah, that's another version of
A
it.
metaphor for many things, yeah. We're just about out of time, so can you break it down for us in terms of something that we can do to apply these principles that you've been talking about?
Yeah, I'd like to just take 1 second just to talk a little bit about the course. So the course basically is 6 weeks, and it's about playing together to deeply explore how we are interconnected, and the tools and the practices and the consciousness of how to navigate that leads to more joy, more trust, more honesty, more play. And it's doing it in a community that you now develop a common language with. So you get to carry that past the course and keep playing. And so it just builds and builds and builds. That's our vision for the course. And so we're really hoping that you'll join us.
And I just wanted to add one more thing, was that, I mean, we're just thrilled. There's such a synergy with the teachings here at the center with what we teach, that it actually gives us an opportunity that rather than starting from ground zero, which we've always had to do in the past, we can start so much farther in. And so you don't need to go through that 2 years of, well, oh yeah, oh, there was a pillow over there. You don't have to do that.
Right.
We can actually jump in with you in another place, and really, hopefully, what our desire is that we can all just like take a leap together and soar from there.
Yeah.
Okay, so we would like to leave you with two things. Some of you know my mom stayed with me last week. And I have an interesting relationship with my mom because she's gone through a lot after my father passed away, and she's has her own battle with dementia. And so there's days in which she's just not engaged. She just moves through life and she doesn't engage. Even if you talk to her, she'll like do hand gestures and that's it. And what I found in the past is that if I spend more than a couple of days with her, I just end up not liking her very much. And so this time it was like, okay, I've done a lot of work on myself since the last time I did this. So please come stay with me. And it got to be my workshop when Meenal was away, of actually just asking the question, whenever I didn't like her, what is the story I'm telling myself right now? And just that one simple question of what is the story I'm telling myself right now showed me that the story was consistent. And it was always, I want her to be different than she is right now. It was that simple. And so in the prayer class, my word of truth was acceptance, or my word of love was acceptance. It was, can I actually accept the person that's in front of me, just being whoever they are, doing the best they can? And if I can do that, things just go a lot better. Mm-hmm. I'm not trying to change the other person.
Mm-hmm. It's a beautiful mantra. I think that's probably one that, I mean, the question that you came up with, I want this person to be different. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily a beautiful mantra that we want to repeat 108 times, but it's the truth of what's going on for many of us all the time. I'm not only person, but I want this situation to be different.
Yeah,
and what a beautiful tie-in to the poison tree reading that Hugh did too, about how there's, you can hate the tree because it's poisonous, or you can move down the spectrum and say, oh my God, a poison tree, I get to work on myself.
Right.
Wow. Yeah.
Right.
You said there was another thing too?
Yeah, there is one more thing.
Okay.
Just as powerful.
Okay, good.
Yeah, and I had to remember what it was. The other tool is to ask, what's my part in this? Because we are that interconnected that in those times when Chris would want to jump in and help me and fix the technology, it's like, guess what? I wanted him to jump in and fix the technology. There was a part of me that actually was in this victim place saying, come in and rescue me. I don't know how to do this myself. And it's fine when I ask for it, but it's not when I don't. And so what's my part in this? It's like it reminded me of Nipun was telling you at lunch that day about your friend that's from Japan that had come to Gandhi 3.0. Yeah. And she's done this thing now with her kids where when the kids argue, she's already told him, before you come to me with what happened, I want you to sit down and write 10 things that you could have done differently. And then come to me, and then we'll have a conversation. And she said now, Nipun was saying, it's like now it's like they go off and they do the list even before they come, but it's like, and they're very young. Yeah. And I was just surprised. And it was just, it's this recognition that it's like, I might think here, be sitting here and, innocently thinking it's like, oh, I was the angel in all of this. It was all of him, and, he did it all. But the reality is that chances are there was actually something that I could have done differently that would have led to a different outcome.
Mm. That's such a familiar scenario of the silent wish, rescue me, rescue me, rescue me, and then they rescue you and you hate them for it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've done that. Anybody? Yeah. And I have to say, I have to vouch for that story that Nipun told me about the 10 things. I've been trying it if I'm noticing conflict with somebody, and I get to about 3, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I had such a role in this, I can just let this go. It's a really powerful practice. So, yeah. Any closing words?
Come to our course.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I'll say, come play with us.
Yeah.
Because that our courses are actually play and fun. There's some learning, but there's a lot of like activities and things, and it's experiential. So
It was
hopefully
fun.
we'll see you.
Yeah, the one I did in Ojai was certainly fun, and I hope I get to take yours. I have to look at my schedule, but I'm hoping I can be there too. So,
Great.
All right, let's give him some love, and then we'll pray. Yeah, thanks, you guys. All right, thank you. Okay, so let's just take a moment and breathe. And turn within and just trust and know that there truly is one perfect life, one field, one wholeness, one energy that is this power, this presence that is completely loving, completely for us, completely whole, perfect, inclusive, complete. And this energy is the interconnection that is between all of us as it is us, that we are a wave in the ocean of interconnection, but we are also the ocean in the wave. And how wonderful it is to know this and to resonate with this and to know that this is the truth of who we are. This is the truth of our being. And so knowing that this is so, I know that every single person here today and those that we hold in our hearts have been touched by this deep message, have been touched to know greater levels of acceptance, joy, peace, harmony, grace, playfulness, and all of the things that Chris and Meenal mentioned that help us resonate in that place of interconnection even more deeply. And I know also that we are willing to look at ourselves and to honestly and kindly and compassionately recognize our parts in creating all things, what we call good, what we call bad, what we call in between, and recognizing that truly it is all good. It is all here for our evolving. It is all here for our uplifting. It is all here to support us in moving ever deeper into that consciousness of oneness and wholeness that we speak about so fluently here in this spiritual center. And so I'm grateful for this center. So grateful for our guests today, Chris and Meenal. So grateful for our teaching. Grateful for all paths to God. Churches, temples, synagogues, mosques, ashrams, fundamentalists, atheists. Grateful for the transformation of the divine that is happening in all things and that is most certainly happening within us here as we have done our spiritual play together this morning. And so with a heart that is so filled with gratitude and so filled with love, I say, thank you, Spirit, thank you, God, and I release these words into the divine mystery, and together we say, and so it is. I am so blessed.
Love has found me. I used to think it was outside me. Now I realize it comes flowing out of me. Love has found me. And it feels good with a capital. Good, good. Yes, it feels good more than anything. Good. To let the power that spins the planets to move through my heart as well. And I am so grateful. And it feels good with a capital. Good, good. Yes, it feels good more than anything. Good. It's as natural as breathing. It is constant as the sun. It's a river of well-being that is here for everyone. I have found myself a heaven that was never far away, bigger than I could could conceive in. All I did was practice believing. Love has found me. I used to think it was outside me. Now I realize it comes flowing out of me. Love has found me. And it feels good with a capital, good, good. Yes, it feels good more than anything. Good, break it down. It's as natural as breathing. It is constant as the sun. It's a river of well-being that is here for everyone. I have found myself a heaven that was never far away, bigger than I could conceive in. All I did was practice believing. Love has found me. I used to think it was outside me. Now I realize it comes flowing out of me. Love has found me. And it feels good with a capital, good, good. Yes, it feels good more than anything. Good, let me hear. Good with a capital, good, good. It feels good more than anything. Good, one more time. Good with a capital, good, good.